Bienvenidos al club. Muy buenas noches a los que nos escucháis desde Europa, buenas tardes a los que nos escucháis desde el otro lado del Océano Atlántico. Una entrega extra. A medida que nos acercamos al 500 nos vamos poniendo un poquito más nerviosos, ya sabéis, el sábado 11, 1:30 de la tarde, Sala Mirador de Madrid, NBAdictos 500. Pero antes tenemos que ir con el 498. Hoy tenemos con nosotros a Imman Adan. Ya sabéis, hoy toca entrevista en inglés hablando sobre los Toronto Raptors. Aquí comienza el capítulo 498 de NBAdictos. Imman Adan, welcome to NBAdictos. Wait, I don't listen to you.
How about now? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to NBAdictos. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. We are heading our 500 episode, and we're doing
Congratulations.
a special show in Madrid, and we're a little bit nervous.
Congratulations. That's such a huge milestone. Congrats.
Yeah, this the 9th season, and I have to ask you, what happened with This Is and Dimes? I can wait.
We're not at 500. No. Honestly, I want to say congratulations to Sandy. She just gave birth to a baby girl.
Oh, congratulations!
So we had Sandy who just gave birth to a baby girl. I mean, always check out Katie's work at Basketball Feelings. I had family stuff come up. So we've just decided collectively to take a bit of a hiatus, but we should we'll be meeting back up and seeing what the future holds. But everyone's got so many personal things going on, including a new baby. So there's just a lot.
So you can say that there is no connection between the Raptor seasons and the hiatus of This Is and Dimes.
Also, we all hate basketball right now.
It's not that you don't do the podcast because of the season. Maybe they're having that season because you don't are doing the podcast.
It's a good point. It's a good point. We should bring it back and see what happens. We hope to be back.
I want to say hello to Danny Salas and say NBA addicts. Good afternoon, y'all. He listened to us from America, so it's great having both sides of the ocean here today. We have a lot to talk about the Toronto Raptors. It's I don't know where to start because it's confusing for me at least. All the things that went well the last season, all the good things that we talk about, as I call them, the clone army, all that guys that are similar, you can change one from another, and it seems that something changed in the Raptors, and also I don't know if it's like that or maybe it's just my feeling from here. It seemed that the Raptors family was like very close with the players and the coaches, and this year it seems that there are a lot of criticizing or something changed. It's like that, or it's only that there is an ocean in the middle and I lost things.
No, I think you're completely right. I think that we're starting to see a bit of a change with Raptors culture in general, the way that the fans react to the team, the way that the team is amongst themselves. I think we're starting to see a change, and it's losing kind of makes it more apparent. Because they're losing, we see it a little bit more. But I think your observation from across the sea is accurate. I think that that's very fair.
hmm So, what is happening there? Because it seems that it was like 10 lives ago, but only 3 years ago, Nick Nurse made that team champion. And it seemed that he is gonna be the Greg Popovich of the Raptors. Everybody loved him so much, and if you go to Raptors Twitter nowadays, there's a lot of
Yeah, I disagree with them about Nick Nurse. I mean, it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate that the team is losing. I think a lot of people blame Nick because they're losing, but they're playing all of their guys 40 minutes. It's like, what's the point in extending? Like, Pascal looks so tired right now. Fred looks so tired. They're wearing their guys down and still losing. So I get the criticism for Nick Nurse, but I think a large part of it is, yeah, they won a championship 3 years ago, but they kind of expedited the blow up, in order to win that championship. And so they knew by trading for Kawhi Leonard, by getting Marcus Sol, Serge Ibaka, these guys, they knew that, yeah, they have a chance to win in 2019, but the team could be really, really bad in 2021 when Serge Ibaka expires and Marcus Sol expires and Kawhi is gone. They knew that, and that's what happened, right? Like the team became really, really bad in 2021. Last year, they were good. And I think this season, they were hoping to build off of what they had last year. They were a good team from December 1st, from the time Pascal was healthy last season to the end of the year. I think they had maybe the third best record in the Eastern Conference. They
Mhm.
were like the fourth best record in the league. It was really a really good team, winning at a 54 win pace from that point forward. And so they thought, oh, we'll build off of that. Pascal will be healthy now. And unfortunately, they haven't been able to do that, and health is a large part of it. Precious Achua matters a lot to what this team does. They haven't really been able to get healthy, but also I kind of point it to like they didn't get the leaps that they expected from all of their young guys in the same way.
Mhm.
Everyone they were hoping would get better in a natural way, and that just didn't happen. Fred VanVleet was really struggling to start the year, and that kind of makes everyone look worse when your point guard is bad. But more importantly, they didn't get Otto Porter like they thought that they did.
Yeah.
They didn't get any other backup guards. They don't have a center. So I think they were hoping to build off of what they had last year, but outside of Pascal Siakam being just as good, what truly got better from last season? I think it's really hard to pinpoint something. And so, with Fred taking a major step back, now he's good. Now he's playing really great, but he did take a major step back to start the year, and Precious is out. And, Scotty's having his sophomore slump, although he's been really great recently. That's just going to
Mhm.
make the team look really, really bad to start the year. So it seems like everything needed to be perfect in 2019 to win a championship. And at the start of this year, everything needed to be bad for the Raptors to be where they are. And everything that could go wrong did go wrong, unfortunately. And now they're kind of left in this space deciding, what they have to do.
Mhm. I have to say hello to Jonathan Reino. He's also there. He's asking about some Heat player. We'll talk later. We first talk about the Raptors. Danny Salas says that they need a bit more of offensive variety, in his opinion. Um, I,
Uh,
I d- yeah.
I agree. I agree. Their offense, I think, has been like top 10. Like their offensive rating is actually not the issue, right? Which is what's surprising when you talk about what this Raptors team has been. I think in the last like however many games, their offense has generally not been the problem. But I completely agree. They need more offensive variety. They need more guards. They need guys who can attack the basket. They need more downhill threats. They need more shooting. They need more spacing. Like it comes back to roster construction again, right? But it's their defense that has been the biggest issue, which you would think is surprising considering what the team is built as. You said it, those clones, all of those clones are really great defenders too. And so you would think that their defense would be better than it is. But in order to play the style of defense that they have to be on it every single night. The defense that they play, because they have no rim protector, the idea is you take out the middle and then you rotate over to the corners, and you have to be incredibly quick. And what happens is when you are not closing out as fast as possible, when you're not on defensively at all times, you're giving up a lot of corner threes. And that's what's happening with the Raptors. They give up the
And
most in the
their
league.
defense is like a clock. The
Yeah.
moment one piece doesn't work, all falls apart.
It all falls apart completely, exactly. And they started a rookie at center for a large part of it to take it out. And the rookie at center was some of their best defensive lineups. Why? Because you need to have a backline of your defense. And last year, the backline of their defense is Precious Achua. And Precious was out for most of this year. It makes sense that since Precious has come back, their defense has started to look better, right? Like they had one of their best defensive performances against the Sacramento Kings, who has been the best offense this year, the second best offense this year, right? So there are moments that you see it when you watch this Raptors team, and it might happen for an entire game, or it might happen for a quarter, like last night or the night before against the Phoenix Suns, where they were phenomenal in the third quarter, and you're like, yes, this is the team. But then, why they lost that Phoenix Suns game is because in the fourth quarter, they had to play a lineup of, I love Juancho, but unfortunately it's Juancho and Malachi, and, they had to play that and all of their bench players because they needed to find minutes for them, and that lineup absolutely destroyed the team. All of those guys were like -8 in 5 minutes or -14 in 6 minutes. Like they were all really, really bad in those minutes that the Raptors had to buy for their starters. And so right now they're sort of looking at a team that just doesn't have the depth to be able to give their starters rest, and they don't have a backline of their defense, meaning in order to be a good defensive team, they have to be on. And you said it, it's like a clock. If one person falls off, everything goes down. Defense moves on a string. And if they have and so like their defense has just been one of the worst defenses in the league this year because they can't be that at all times, especially not playing 40 minutes a night. You cannot play that intensity of defense while playing 40 minutes a night. And because they have no center, everybody plays up, and that's going to be a problem. And also to start the year, like Scotty is a sophomore. His defense was not up to par. Fred VanVleet took a major step back. And so, if your point of attack defender is bad and you don't have a rim protector, you're going to be in for a really bad defense. That's just a recipe for disaster. So as much as their offense seems to be the issue on paper, it's actually been their defense that's been their biggest issue this year.
We have to talk about many players. Danny Salas says, as a Caps fan, having lost both matches, I hope you get the route to get back to your place. I love Toronto for giving market opportunity. And Jonathan
Fan
says
favorite.
they need to play some basketball.
We do.
Thanks to Gordo Barkley. He subscribed for a whole year right now. Thank you, Gordo. We have to talk about a lot of players. We have a lot of rumors. We have to remember that in 8 days the trade market is closed, so we have a lot of rumors these days, and we'll have more, I think. And the Raptors are in all the conversations. Zach Lowe said the other day that they are the first piece of the domino, and said no hard feelings to Hachimura, but it seems like that. It seems like the Raptors have to decide if they want to rebuild, if they want to make some changes, or they simply stuck with the players they have, or they going to fully rebuild, press the red button and, and
Blow
boom
it up.
over. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think they should do?
It's a hard question, because I think that and we can go player by player. I think that they have to make a decision on Fred VanVleet. We have to remember that he's a free agent this summer. They have to decide if they want to renew him or not, and mm, mm, from that point you have to decide all the rest. I don't know. The beginning of the season was pretty bad for Fred. It looked that he was not the same guy. I guess he was not healthy, and is a player that need his body 100%. But now he's playing better. I think that that's the keystone of all the things that they have to decide these days.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think you're right, Fred, anybody who's that small, they need to, like, he doesn't have an athletic advantage over anybody. He's not going to be faster than everybody, but he needs to have every bit of his body there. It's the same thing we see, Chris Paul when he has a hamstring in the playoffs, Kyle Lowry when he has a hamstring in the playoffs. These guys who are smaller, they need to be healthy. Otherwise, the drop off is incredibly drastic.
Mhm.
And with Fred, especially defensively, like, to me, that was, yes, he didn't have his legs to shoot, but defensively, he took a major step back, and he was an all NBA level defender last year, and that was a huge reason for why the Raptors could withstand Pascal being out for so long, and OG missing time and everybody else, is because you need Fred to be that for you. Outside of what he does on the offensive end, although you need that as well. He's the most important player in terms of, like, their offense is in. If he's not here, obviously Pascal's their best player. I'm not going to take anything. Pascal's their most important. I probably worded that wrong. But Fred VanVleet kind of makes this work, right? You need a guard to make it work. You can have as many 6'9" guys as you want, but you need someone who's a pull-up threat. You need someone who's a pull-up threat in transition. You need someone who can get downhill. He's small enough and he's quick enough to be able to do that. We've seen that. He's been a bad finisher, in history, but he's been much better at that. He's improved his floater game. He can hit mid-range shots. He is, just in terms of a pure shooter and scorer and a point guard who can facilitate your offense, he matters to what this team does. And I think a lot of Raptor fans don't like that. They don't really like Fred VanVleet right now. But that's just sort of the cold, honest truth, is you need Fred. And the way that I look at Fred's free agency is very similar to Kyle Lowry in 2017, where Kyle, he's my favorite Raptor, the greatest Raptor of all time. I saw someone mention that in there. But Kyle Lowry in 2017 was older than Fred is right now, but he was an all-star. Fred is not an all-star this year. He was last year, but he's not this year. And he, he didn't want to be back in Toronto, right? Like, that's kind of like the ugly truth, the dirty truth, where if he could have left to San Antonio, which is where it seemed like he wanted to go to play with Kawhi, but it happened anyway. But he wanted to go to San Antonio. He did want to play there or in other places. And the reality was every other team looked at a 30-year-old point guard, 30-something-year-old point guard, 31, something like that, who is undersized and has a history of injuries and is clearly on his decline, and no one really offered him the money. So the Raptors were able to re-sign him, and they were able to re-sign him at a discount because there was no real market for him. And I look at Fred VanVleet, and I know that there are rumors, with trades at Clippers and all these other teams, but look at the teams that have cap room. Who is actually going to want to sign Fred VanVleet this summer? I think that, like we saw with Kyle, it's very rare that they want to when guys are older in age, and Kyle Lowry is a much better player than Fred VanVleet is. And so teams whiffed on that in the past, and Kyle had, at least now he's old, and now I can see why teams maybe don't want him. But in 2017, he was still really, really good. He was an all-star in 2018 and in 2019 for a reason as well. And 2020, like, he had three more all-star years under his belt. So he was still a really good player. Whereas Fred VanVleet, I feel like teams might not really be interested in him in the off season, and so the Raptors could probably bring him back. And if their plan is to bring him back because he'll be available, then I think your plan is to stand pat unless you can get a haul for one of your guys.
Jonathan Reno insists about the growth, as you said, the greatest Raptor of all time, Kyle Lowry. He as you mentioned him. He wants to know what that do you think about Lowry trade rumors, and where do you think he's going to go? Kyle Lowry, that seems like a former player, at least this year.
Yeah, I never really loved the fit with him and Jimmy and Bam. I was never a fan of him going to Miami. I know that, Jimmy's one of his really good friends, but to me, I look at that team and I think they need Kyle to be more than what he can be at 36, 37 he'll be this year. Like, they just, like, he's really old and he's really small and has a lot of miles on his body. They need someone who can just score more. And at this stage in Kyle Lowry's career, he's not going to be able to score for you. And that's because, like, for as great as Jimmy and Bam are, they still need more scoring help, right? Like, they still need Kyle to be a member of their big three because Tyler Hero just might not be right now. And he just can't be that. And I think whatever team he's going to needs to have everything else around it. Kind of like the perfect team ideally could be like the Clippers have enough, right? Like the Clippers
Mhm.
have Kawhi, the Clippers have Paul George. They just kind of need a point guard to be able to sort of get them into spaces. I think he would be an upgrade on, John Wall and whatever they have right now currently. Um, and so, like, that could be an interesting team for him. I know that they're interested in Fred VanVleet because the Clippers, secret, are interested in anybody who's ever played on the 2019 Raptors championship team. If they could
Yeah.
have Nick Nurse and Masai Ujiri, they would take that too. They would take the Ball Boys, the Water Boys. They would take anyone from that team. So but like he's gonna be 37 by the time the playoffs roll around. As much as I love Kyle Lowry, I don't know what he can contribute for a team. Any team that's going to need him to score and be a part of their offense, that's just not what he can do right now. And that's what Miami needs. And so I never really understood it as a fit as he was aging out in his career, but like a team that has enough of that, like a Clippers,
Mhm.
could be really interesting.
Mhm. Danny Salas says that Lowry is and always be a dog. Like it or not, he's made of something different and don't know how to explain. Yes, I think
Yeah, for
so.
sure.
It- I'm a little bit old school. I think that the best for Kyle Lowry is to be cut from the Heat and sign from the minimum on the Raptors.
Lakers
And
and the
and
Raptors, bring him
yeah,
back
and
home.
yeah, and
I wouldn't
in
mind
his
that.
career as a bench player, veteran with all that young players, but I know that I'm too old school for that.
I mean, it's better than Malachi Flynn right now, so I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the positions that the Raptors are lacking a backup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
But ideally, if the Raptors do get a backup point guard, it's someone who could be a downhill threat, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not something that Kyle has, but I will take Kyle. I will always pick up Kyle
Mhm.
Lowry.
I want to talk about two of the names that are in every rumor, and I have a feeling. I don't know if you will agree with me or not. I think that one is very underrated around the league and among NBA fans, and the other is a little bit overrated. And I'll explain. Let's start with the underrated. Pascal Siakam. I think that mm, people aren't aware how good he is. And I think that people are mm, mm, judging him from the Tampa season that it has enormous asterisks for all the Raptors, but particularly for him. And I think that he's Jonathan was asking before if you think he can be the centerpiece of a team. I think so. Uh, do you have the feeling that he's underrated in the league, and maybe because of that, he's also in so many rumors?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think I always thought that in 2019, he was a little bit overrated. Thought
Mhm.
in 2019 people crowned him too early. They were saying they were giving him accolades that I was like, when Kawhi left and when Kawhi left in 2020 prior to the bubble, he was he was an all-star starter that year and like I loved him. I thought he played great. Um and he was all NBA and everyone thought he was the best Raptor and I'm like if you look at it, like the reason why the Raptors have their head above water right now is because of what Kyle Lowry is doing. Like, Kyle Lowry is still very much the best player on this team. Pascal is the second best, and it's close. You can say that it's close, like DeMar and Kyle were close, but one is clearly better than the other. And I thought people were crowning him too early. And then what happened was the Tampa year happened, and Kyle Lowry clearly took a step back that year. He was not going to be the best player on the team. And Pascal Siakam was coming off of the bubble where that I think there should be tons of asterisks for Pascal because in the bubble, people forget that like Canada and America had very different laws, right?
Mm.
And all of the Raptors that were American could just go back to America. during the pandemic and they could live life because Americans pretended the pandemic didn't exist. They didn't even know about COVID. Whereas in Canada, it was very, very, very strict, toughest laws in North America. And so not only could Pascal not dribble a basketball because the Raptors didn't have anything open. Like, they didn't have any practice facility. They couldn't send him any trainers, and he couldn't leave to America. He couldn't go anywhere. He was stuck in a condo. He can't dribble a basketball inside of a condo. So he didn't touch a basketball. He didn't train for 4 months. He didn't get to practice at all. And so you watch, Trae Young doing pickup runs, and you're watching all these people in the States kind of live life as though the pandemic didn't happen. And specifically like Serge Ibaka and Pascal Siakam and all these guys on the Raptors that are not U.S. citizens and cannot just get up and go to, like, they were not going to get up and go back to Cameroon or Congo for Serge. And like, so it's like, okay, well, what do we do? And it's like you sit around and you do nothing. So when basketball returned, these were guys that did not get to practice at all. And so the bubble came and they were really, really, really bad there. And that kind of carried over into the Tampa year where he was dealing with this groin injury, and people were thinking about how he failed in the playoffs and really putting things on him. And also they had these crazy expectations for him that I'm just not sure he was there yet with. And it's because they crowned him a little bit too early. But now he is that player that you thought he was, that second team All-NBA, All-NBA forward that you thought he was. He is currently. He is as good as people thought he was back then when he didn't show up. And it's like, no, he's better. He now genuinely has a pull-up game. He now genuinely has a consistent mid-range shot that he did not have before. He can now get to the line 8 times a game. On regular, and his handle is tighter. He is that level of defender. Like, everything that they expected for him to be a little bit earlier than he truly was, he is currently, and then some, and people are just not there to give it to him now because they gave it to him a little bit too early, which I think happens with too many young players.
Mm-hmm. And also we have to make some difference between the Raptors fans and the NBA fans.
Yeah.
Because I think that people don't realize that the Tampa season was an 82 road games for the Raptors, and they were
Also, they didn't have a training camp. They practiced in a ballroom of a hotel. Like, they didn't know what city they were going to be in. They didn't know if they would be in Toronto. They didn't know if they would be in Tampa or Kansas, or like, they had no idea until right before the start. And so it's such a throwaway year.
Mm-hmm. We can read in the Athletic an interview with how do you say, Siakam or Siakam? Because I always said Siakam because he's from Cameroon in French, and
yeah,
and I don't know. You say Siakam?
I say Siakam.
Okay, you have to ask him.
Yeah.
I'm a little
I've always said
freak.
Pascal Siakam, but yeah, it might be Pascal Siakam. Could be.
Yeah. He says that he's tired of losing, and he says to Eric Corinne that everything feels kind of weird. Do you think that he can be traded? Is that something real? Is only rumors of these days?
Yeah, I don't really see that unless it's a haul, right? Like, unless the Raptors, I don't know, unless you're giving up your firstborn child, why would the Raptors do that? Especially like now. All of these deals are going to be available in the summertime. There's no rush to trade him right now. To me, if you're trading a player who's not expiring at the trade deadline, it better be because you're getting something crazy back, or or maybe that relationship with that player is so untenable that you need to move them. Otherwise, it just doesn't quite make sense. You're doing this other team a favor for what? Like, just wait it out a little bit until the summer when you have sort of more there. So I personally don't see it for trading Pascal Siakam. Also, he's the best homegrown talent that you've had, right? Like Kyle, you traded for him. DeMar, you traded him away, and he's better than DeMar DeRozan. I'm sorry, guys, but like, so Pascal's really genuinely the best homegrown talent that you have. Why are you giving up on that? And he's only 28, and he's not like a normal 28-year-old where we're talking about miles on his legs. He just started playing basketball fairly recent. He came into the NBA at 22. This is still a young player who's shown that he's growing and getting better and wants to be here. You can give him the supermax. I just don't understand why the Raptors would move off of him unless something major is going on that the rest of us just don't know about.
Pascal says that everything is out of my control. I focus on what I have every single day, work with what I have, help wherever I can. I agree with you. I think that you can only can trade Siakam if someone desperate comes to you. But if one team is desperate, is not going to send you someone as good as Pascal.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it. We talk about one that I think is underrated player. Now I have to go with one I think that is a little bit overrated, and I will explain. We have to talk about OG Anunoby. You've been tweeting today about fake trades and all the rumors that are on the web right now. I think that he's a little bit overrated because I think that OG is that kind of player that works really well in the environment that he has been. I think that he can suffer if he goes to a different kind of team with a different kind of offense and defense. I'm not saying that he's not good, but uh, some people are talking about him leveling
Kawhi.
with Siakam or Kawhi, and I think that he's at least one step behind.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. He's not on par with Pascal Siakam. Like the Kawhi stuff is crazy, but he's because Pascal's not even on par with Kawhi. Like there's levels to this. Like what Kawhi, LeBron, those are guys that are in a different stratosphere. But with OG, I mean, I kind of agree in terms of like how is he rated with the rest of the league. But if you're the Raptors and you're looking to trade him, they better be overrating him. Otherwise, why am I giving him up? Right? Like, what's the point? Right? Like, unless you're overrating him and you're gonna trade me a package like you're getting a superstar back, why should I do it? Like, where is the benefit for me in making this deal? And especially because I agree. I don't think OG is, a primary or even a secondary star on a team right now. He could be. He's only 25. He could develop into that. But right now, he's not that. And so, where OG to me is best is in his role where he is with the Raptors, right? Where he's not going to be asked to carry the team. Because we saw that Pascal was out to start the year, and the Raptors were really bad last year because OG was their number one guy. And, unfortunately, OG can't carry an offense that way. He doesn't have the handle. He can't create for himself as nicely. He can't, he's not as good of a finisher because his handle's not tight enough. Like, there are just things that he's still continuing to grow and improve on. But two things that he's really good at: defense, number one. He's one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, point blank, period. I can even argue the best at times. He is, by the numbers, one of the most versatile defenders in terms of like, whoever you are, the Raptors just go out and throw you on him, right? When we're looking at how the Raptors have consistently played basketball is, and Joel Embiid talks about it, their goal is to shut down the big man. Like that is, and not their big man, but the best man. Like the goal is to find the star and shut him down. And Luka's had his two worst games against which team? The Raptors. Donovan Mitchell has had his two worst games against which team? The Raptors. And you can go down the list, and it's always consistently because OG is on them. And that's his sort of assignment. That's his role. That's what he's been doing for the Raptors consistently for years. One of my favorite Jokic games where he struggled more than in any game I've seen Jokic struggle in was OG guarding him. And OG is a perimeter defender. So
He
defensively,
also made him care about it because
yeah.
sometimes you see Nikola Jokic struggling on court, but his face is like also when
Yeah,
he's
he looks like
making 60 points, it's
yeah,
like he's made of
unbothered.
ice.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
with OG he was pissed off.
Frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that he gets frustrated. And so, like, that's OG's sort of calling card. And if you're trying to win a championship, you would love to have a guy like that. Any team that wants to be good would love to have a guy like that. That doesn't mean that OG's going to be your best player or your second best player, but maybe he can be your third or your fourth best player. To me, that's where I think he is at kind of currently. And so, if the Raptors trade him, can they get something back that's going to match that? I don't think so, because why would another team trade for him if they have somebody like that already, right? Like, I think you're going to get picks back. And so the idea is you're going to tank. And so it's like, okay, well, if I trade OG, does that mean I have to trade Pascal and I have to trade Fred too? Because maybe what's the point in giving up OG if I'm going to keep everybody else here? Because if I'm going to keep everybody, maybe that means that next year I'm going to try to hopefully get back on track. Well, then
Mhm.
OG would be perfect to keep to go back on track. So to me, the real question is, in terms of who's being traded, because there's so many rumors, it's not about what you can get for any guy. It's about, okay, Masai, Bobby, what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to blow this up? Do you not believe in this team anymore? You're thinking, oh, we spent a few years trying to get this, but yeah, we don't think it's going to work and we're going to give everybody up? Or do you think, you know what, this was a bad year because of all these extenuating circumstances, because of everything else that happened, but we think that next year we can build on it and we can actually be better. We see what the holes are, we see what we need. Let's get better at it next year. If it's the second option, because you think Scotty's going to be better, maybe you can get a center in the offseason, all these other things, then I think you want to keep OG. But if it's the first option about blowing it up, then I can see OG going. But to me, not only would OG go, Pascal and Fred, and maybe some other people should go too, because what's the point in keeping them if the plan is to blow it up? They're all 28 years old. So
We
I
have to
don't,
remember that OG is 25,
he's young.
Van Vliet and Siakam are 28, and it's a very young team. In the case of OG, I only get it if in two cases. If you blow it out everything and you tank, or if you think, okay, I'm going to give Scotty Barnes that role. He's going to be my OG in making the things that OG does now. So I need another player to fit in Scotty's current
Yeah,
role.
that's true. Yeah, I think that's, and Precious Achua too, right? Like what Precious is doing right now kind of really fills in some of the stuff that OG does, especially if he becomes a consistent 3-point shooter. So maybe you're looking at it and you're saying, maybe we are a little bit redundant. Maybe we can give up OG to get a center or to get that guard that we're looking for or to get this other piece. I think that that is a possibility there as well. But I'm looking at this market and it's, is that guy on Memphis? Like they're not giving up Jaron Jackson Jr. Like, is that guy on Cleveland? They're not giving up, an Evan Mobley or a Jared Allen. Like, so where is this guy in this deal? I think most of the trades that you're looking at are for OG or for Fred or for Pascal, for anybody, is to get picks. And so the idea is you don't believe in this core anymore and you want to build with Scotty. And to me, I think that's a gamble. I think you don't know. Like I love Scotty Barnes, and Scotty's looked much better in the last month and a half or so than he did at the beginning of the year. But you don't know if you're ever going to get a player as good as Siakam, right? Like you don't know. And it's the same thing with the championship, right? You roll the dice because you don't know if you're going to have Nick Nurse. You don't know if you're going to have Masai Ujiri. You don't know if you're going to have all of these pieces. So when you have a chance to be good right now, be good right now. Don't take a gamble to say, oh, maybe we'll be good in 5 years, because who knows what your coaching is? Who knows who your owners are? Who knows what anything can be? So instead of taking the gamble for the future, bet on what you have right now, is my opinion. And it's been what Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster have done. I know there's a lot of noise about the Raptors this year, but to me, this is no different than the Kyle and DeMar years where they flame out and they're bad. Obviously, this is a little bit different because they're really bad in the regular
Also,
season. And yeah,
also, Iman, it seems that maybe it's not all the noise from Toronto. I mean,
I don't think it
eh,
is.
I think that we know how this works. And when the rumors came from only one side, only one journalist, there is maybe some team, some GM, or some office of one player that wants to move him. I think that some teams are thinking, oh, this great young team is suffering, is struggling this year. Let's get go there and fish some good
I
players.
think I think that's exactly what it is, because there's no doubt in my mind that there were calls about Kyle and DeMar during their entire run, but we never heard any rumors. And
Mm.
even all of the rumors that we're hearing right now are either, maybe coming from Clutch, maybe, OG's agency, um, or they're coming from
We
other
know
teams.
how LeBron James works.
Hey, are they coming from other teams? Like, I saw a report today by a Phoenix Suns reporter who says that the Raptors are not even interested in keeping OG Anunoby because he's always injured and because he hasn't improved in XYZ areas. And I'm like, how does a Phoenix Suns reporter know that? But no one on the Raptors know this. Oh, and Phoenix happens to be interested in him and wants to trade for him, and they just happen to find this report when, like, no one on the Raptors has reported that. Also, someone who, like, talked to people within the, like, I don't think that that's true. I don't have any reporting. I don't know anything concrete, but I don't imagine that's true. So a lot of this stuff is just other people smelling blood in the waters and putting information out there, hoping that it's true.
I have to put this image.
A great photo.
Yeah, you talk about the Suns. I'm so fan of Scotty, and this moment is one of the best moments in this season. It
Yeah,
was really great.
mine too. My favorite moment, because it means I don't have to hear about anyone saying trade DeAndre Ayton for Pascal Siakam, which is a disgusting trade offer. I hate it with every part of me.
And also DeAndre Ayton, that is a great player, but he's here in Spain. We call horchata is like it's called ice veins, but in a bad way.
Okay.
It's
Yeah. I'm sure he's like a fine player. I liked him during their their finals run, but oh god, I would be very upset if the Raptors gave up something like that. That
I
would
was laughing
really,
this
really make
morning.
me
I was
angry.
laughing this morning when I heard and when I saw him saying, "When you poke the bear, which bear? You're a teddy bear."
He and yeah, it kind of looks like a teddy bear. I like it, but yeah, no.
We have to talk about the Scotty, of course. And it seems to me that people want the players to be to step from rookie of the year to the 10-year veteran in 3 months. It's normal that in the season of Scotty. Maybe what is not normal, it was his rookie season. Uh, I don't see any red flag on the Scotty Barnes season.
Yeah, I think people just sort of look at his rookie season and are like, okay, yep, now you're in your next year. You're right, be a 10-year veteran now. And the truth is, growth, is linear. It doesn't happen like it doesn't happen. Growth isn't linear, I should say. It does not happen like that.
Mhm.
And I think I genuinely believe, at least from a Raptors fan perspective, Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, I think, broke this franchise. Like, I think genuinely, I think they might have even broken the front office as well, right? Because, like, their growth, like, Pascal Siakam was the second leading scorer on a championship team in his third season in the league, right? Like, that's so incredibly, like, young, especially because his first season he was in the G League for all of it. He didn't
Yeah.
even play, like, for the real team. So this is like his second real NBA season, and he was on the bench in his first one. Like, we're talking about G League player to bench player to NBA champion to all NBA player in the span of 3 years. That is unprecedented, right? Like, I can't think of another player in the league that goes from G League to champion and all NBA in 3 years' time. Um, and so I think people look at that and are like, all right, well, Scotty, you started for number 4
Mm.
overall pick. You're not number 27. You're not in the G League. So now your growth needs to be even better than Pascal Siakam's. We need to see you, he did it in 3 years, do it in 1.5 years. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. And nobody sort of gets better in that way. But what we're seeing with Scotty is, yeah, there was some growing pains to start the year,
That
but he's
expression, I want to point that expression, that English expression, growing in pains. We don't have nothing similar in Spanish. But it's like that. It's like that. It's not
Yeah,
as easy as okay. Time goes by and I get better
I'm
magically.
better. Yeah, it takes work, but it also it's gonna hurt. Like it's called growing pains because it's going to hurt, and you're going to fall down sometimes, and it's not going to be just a straight line. And what we're seeing with Scotty is like, yeah, he took some lumps and bruises to start the year out. Nick Nurse benched him for a game. Like there were some true issues, and I think there were tons of reports about, are the Raptors happy with his work ethic? We're seeing Pascal work out in the summer, but what was Scotty doing? And all these reports that were coming out, and it turns out that when you're 21, just you need
Mhm.
a little bit more time. Like it just doesn't happen as quickly. And right now, I think everyone would be like, yeah, Scotty looks like he's built on, he's having his best month in his season right now, based off of not in the season, sorry, in his career, based off of the statistics this month. So it's better than anything in his rookie year. And his rookie year, he showed some shooting chops that, like, we didn't know if they were, you know, if he was able to replicate that, and he struggled to do that, but we're starting to see it come back. So I think with Scotty, it's just about giving him time. Who knows what he'll
Mhm.
be? I don't want to put anything too young on him, like we did with OG, calling him Kawhi in his third year in basketball, and calling,
But maybe
Pascal.
maybe we are late on that because they asked Draymond Green. They say that
Yeah,
some journalists say that Scotty Barnes' floor was Draymond Green, and Draymond. I love Draymond in
yeah,
everything that hasn't have to do with LeBron James, and in the rest, I love his podcast. Is great,
yeah,
and I think that he sees the basketball in a superior way from a lot of
yeah,
players, and
yeah.
and he said I think that he can be way better than me, and also that floor is a very high floor.
It's an incredibly high floor, and it's an incredibly high floor because of what he can do defensively. And I think with Scotty, again, so much of this Raptor season, everybody points to their offense and the lack of shooting. But again, I think to me, what I was sort of frustrated with Scotty in this to start the year out was his defense. And um and one thing about Draymond is, that's a sort of calling card, but he's also the anchor of a defense, and that's not where Scotty was. But I think Nick Nurse has kind of thrown him into the fire. A lot of, if you watch Scotty, he's going to have a lot of on ball reps. And the reason is it keeps him engaged. But I've been impressed with his defense in this last week, especially. Like, I was just like, oh, look at him getting, look at that there. And
And
so,
also he's starting to be very vocal
yeah.
and talking to his mates and saying you have to switch now, point it, you go there, go into the help, and I think that's
And
very
that's important.
Draymond-esque.
Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, like, Marcus is one of my favorite Raptors, even if he was only here for 2 years. I don't care. Like, I love him so much. But like watching and I wish that Scotty got to play with Kyle Lowry and Marcus because I think that would have made him a completely different player. Like, I just think those two guys are two of the smartest basketball players of all time, and they're so good at what they do. Like, to me, Kyle Lowry is a point guard and Marcus is a center, but they're the same person. Like, they're so similar in every way. I think anyone who's a Marc Gasol fan should be a Kyle Lowry fan. Anyone who's a Kyle fan should love Marc Gasol. Um, and so to me, it's just like, when you think about what that Raptors team was defensively and why they were as good as they were, whether it was with Kawhi or the year that he left, it's because of that. It's because of that communication on the defensive end. They seem more like a unit. They seem more like a team. And I think it's because they had those veterans who were always talking,
Yeah.
and who were always pointing and who were always doing things. And now you're looking at it and it's a much quieter team. It's not a team that seems to communicate very well with each other. It's not a team who you're like, I just like the vibes just feel a little off. They feel a little different. But watching Scotty sort of take that, because he is going to be the face of this franchise, he is going to be that player. I think is going to be so important.
Yeah.
And I think Pascal is sort of giving him the rope to do that, which is nice.
Mhm. Emmanuel is asking us if Nurse's job is in danger.
Uh, that's a good question. I think a lot of people thought, like you, that he would be the Greg Popovich of this team, right? Like, I talked to David Thorpe and he's like, "Yeah, you guys find your guy." That's so rare for a team to just find their guy. And now there's a lot of questions about it. I personally don't look at this team's feelings as Nick Nurse's fault. I'm like, what do you want him to do? Who do you want him to play? You guys gave him nothing. And oftentimes, when coaches' jobs are at risk, is when they become a scapegoat for the season, right? Because the GMs need to blame somebody. Otherwise, they're going to get blamed and they don't want to get blamed. So they have to blame somebody else. But I look at Masai and Bobby and I think they have so much job security that I don't know that they feel pressure to blame somebody for the season. And I think that gives Nick Nurse a little bit more rope, that no one in Toronto is looking at Masai and Bobby and thinking, are they right for this job? Should we move past them? No one's thinking that, right? So because they don't have any stress about their job, I think that allows them and affords them more time with Nick Nurse.
Mhm.
And the other thing I would look at is Dwayne Casey was not a guy that Masai Ujiri hired. He wasn't, but Masai Ujiri let Dwayne Casey coach for how many years before moving past him? And it wasn't until Dwayne Casey had his best season, by the numbers. They won 59 games. That is still the most wins that the Raptors team has ever really had in a season, was under Dwayne Casey. He won Coach of the Year, and that's when they moved past him to Nick Nurse. So to me, it's about what is the long-term view of this team. I don't think this one season really changes any of that, because in the past, what Masai Ujiri has shown is he doesn't care about what you're doing in the regular season. He cares about, what does this team look like long term with you, and do I trust that you can be that guy?
And also,
So I
and
think he's
also,
safe.
you mentioned in David Thorpe, Coach Thorpe always says that sometimes some GMs, their job is to keep their job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes they make something, maybe not the smartest move for the team,
Yeah.
but the smartest move for keeping his job. And as you said, I don't think that Webster or Ujiri are afraid of that.
Yeah,
So
so they don't have to
I
blame anybody, right? Like, that's when coaches are always, like, you look at Portland, it's like, well, got to do something with Billups because, you don't want the GM to get in trouble. And it's like, with the Raptors, doesn't
Mhm,
matter. Like, Masai and Bobby are safe. And so to me, Nick Nurse, if his job is in danger, it's because of conversations that are happening behind the scenes that we don't know of. But I don't know it's because of the season, because they're so patient with stuff like that. And I don't see it, because their job is not in
mhm,
danger.
mhm. We didn't mention one of my favorite NBA players because of his way of play, but also because of his name. Uh, I don't know if you know how we say crazy in Spanish.
Loco?
Yeah, coloco.
Oh, Christian Coloco. Okay, yeah. I
I
love him.
love coloco.
Me
Me
too.
vuelve loco. And we saw him going down to the G League. He's way young, and he has a lot of improvement to make. But it seems to me there is something there.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. I love Coloco. I, thought it was a great pick. And like I said, it's interesting enough that the Raptors, but some of their best defensive lineups have been with him, which sounds weird because he's a rookie.
Mhm.
But he's a rim protector. He's 7 feet tall. He's the only person on the team that is 7 feet tall. And in basketball, height matters somehow. But it's interesting that he's not really gotten much run during this road trip. I thought we would see a little bit more of him. But yeah, I love him. I think he's great. I hope that he continues to develop. The Raptors have used their G League for good. Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Chris Boucher. A lot of really great players have come out of their G League, and so hopefully Christian Coloco can be another one of them.
Mhm. And we are ending right now, but we didn't talk about the other name that's in all the rumors, Gary Trent Jr. Um,
Mm.
Also a expiring contract like Van Vliet, but for many reasons, a different case from Fred. What do you think is gonna happen with Trent?
So I really was of the belief that he was probably going to go. I truly did believe that for a large part of it, because you're looking at this team and you're thinking, whose skill set is the most replaceable? It's always kind of been, it's harder to replace 6'9" guys than it is to replace a shooter. but I think he's gonna stay. I've like come around. It might be wishful thinking, but I think the Raptors are probably gonna have a more boring trade deadline unless someone truly, truly wows them. And with Gary, I think why I've sort of changed my mind is you're looking at it and he's not replaceable. You really need what he offers just in terms of that scoring, and Raptors really don't have any of it. And so if their plan is to be a good team next year and not bottom out, then I think they're still going to want to have Gary Trent Jr. because of what he can offer. So I think for that reason, I've sort of changed my mind, even though I was really firmly in the camp that Gary was probably going to be the one to go at this trade deadline.
I agree with you. I think that the Raptors are going to be way boring that the people expect, unless the Clippers give them
Kawhi.
Terrence Mann. No, I'm a Terrence Mann believer.
I'm a Terrence Mann believer as well, but the one thing is Masai Ujiri doesn't really make midseason moves, right? The only
Yeah,
one that he's done that's like really been important was
Mark.
Marc Gasol. And
Yeah.
and Serge Ibaka he did as well, but that's because Kyle and DeMar were pretty much asking for it in press conferences. But outside of that, he makes his moves in the summertime, so I just don't see it happening.
We'll keep an eye on the Toronto Raptors. You know that here in NBAdictos we are very fond of the Canadian team for a lot of reasons, not only
Jose
for the
Calderon and Marc Gasol, what more do you need?
of course, of course. Also, Juancho is there. We have
And
to
Juancho
remember
now too.
he's
Yeah.
not playing a lot, but he's there. But also Vince Carter, also a lot of players that we remember. It's I don't know how to say it in English. In Spanish, we say it's equipo simpático. That everybody likes that team. So
Hmm.
we're very fond of the Raptors.
We're fond of Spanish players, especially. I think one really quick story is Jose Calderon brought his son to a Raptors game, and everybody was cheering for Jose so loud. And his kid looked up at him and said, "Wait, are you like the LeBron James of Toronto?" And I thought that was so good. Like that's what Jose is to us, basically.
Yeah, I want that 8 number hanging in the roof
It's gotta
is
happen.
Scotiabank Center. I'm a
Yeah, it's gotta
knowledgeable
happen.
guy. I still call
Air
them
Canada. Yeah.
Air Canada Center. Imman Adan, thank you very much. It's always a
Thank
pleasure having you in our show. And this is your home. So whenever you want, we can
Thank
talk
you for
about the
having
Raptors.
me. Sorry, I talked long.
No, I could be here 5 hours with you. It's great. Thank you very much, Iman.
Thanks.
Ahí teníamos a Imman Adan para hablar de los Raptors, como siempre, un auténtico placer, una periodista que controla muchísimo, que sabe mucho de baloncesto y que está muy bien informada de la franquicia canadiense. La podéis leer en Basketballnews. Nosotros volvemos la semana que viene, volvemos con Javi López, lo tendremos el lunes en el capítulo 499. Ya sabéis que el sábado 11 de febrero a la 1:30 en la Sala Mirador hacemos el NBAdictos 500 con muchísimos amigos, con muchísimos invitados. Esperamos veros allí. Un saludo.